All right. Hello, everyone. Very sorry about this week. Said I was going to post a video on Sunday. Ended up not posting at all. I did have the um, uh, presentation out there for you to see, even though it's fairly difficult content-wise. Unpacking standards. It's really important that you're able to do this. And if you do it the first handful of times, you might not really understand it that well, but that's okay. It's a process. I'm still learning it, and I've been doing it the last few years now. Um, so I'm going to go through really quickly here and just kind of tell you what I want you to get out of it. Um, First of all, it's really important that you're like, well, which standards to choose? It's really important that you know how to choose standards and which ones are most important. Think about what are the standards that kids really need to know before they leave your class, and thinking about the skills and knowledge they need to possess. Um, so kind of prioritizing the standards, and sometimes they call them essential standards, power standards, just because it's basically impossible to um, teach all of the standards in a deep way. That doesn't mean you can't teach all the standards throughout, but the ones that you really hit on and really are guaranteed, part of the guaranteed viable curriculum. So anyways, I'm going to show you the unpacking part of it. What do I mean by unpacking standards? So how do you determine and prioritize standards? And here's a set of standards here. Looking at the verbs and also looking at depth of knowledge. You have recognize, construct, analyze, explain. So depth of knowledge is such an important part of it too, and one of those things that I'm still constantly going back and looking at. So here's a terminology: performance indicators for each one. So you have K through 2, grades 3 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12. Since I teach middle school, constantly looking at this part of the standard for whatever essential standard that we're using. And something I do like to include in my rubrics is the high school level, and allowing students that already can do the standard to then jump forward. And I'm still kind of new at that as well, but uh, something that I like to include. So components of unpacking, you have the content, context, complexity, and evidence. So you have, here's the standard here, and here's what you need them to do as part of the standard. Oh, here's a little mental map that they created. Make sure you know the verbs and the nouns, because they're going to help you then create units and lessons. And if they need to create and label a map, make sure that they're what is proficient. That's part of what is proficient for the standard. All right, moving on. So creating a mental map. Which context is it in? Is it really important? So going through these, depth of knowledge is another important thing. There's so many different depth of knowledge charts out there. Just making sure that you, at the end of the unit or lesson, that you can get them to the extended thinking part of it. There's depth of knowledge too. And you have, here's a map there of tribal areas in Wisconsin. Kind of skipping forward. You can then break down the standards into learning targets, I can statements. And so like here's the overall standard, creating and label a map of local, state, tribal lands, and so on. Well, what do they need to be able to do to get to the end of that standard? Well, they need to be able to identify the shape of Wisconsin. Like that is a really good one, because for elementary, even middle school, sometimes, well, before they can do this, they have to be able to know where Wisconsin is. Maybe they need to locate their town and bodies of water, and then create a mental map. So those are all things that you have to think about. Creating I can statements to support the overall standard is really important. Then practicing it. Like I said, I just wanted you to get the gist of what this is all about. The end game are the standards, and the roadmap everything you do in the roadmap, as far as what is essential, needs to support that. So going back up to this here, if this is the end goal here, creating and labeling a map on local, community, state, tribal lands, you got to think about, well, what do we have to do what do the students have to do to get there? And that's where you create I can statements. They could just be individual lessons. On mine, I have LEQs, lesson essential questions. Just looking up at my essential question is, how can civic engagement lead to positive change in the world? My LEQ for the first couple days is, what is civic engagement and what are some examples? So if they need to define what civic engagement is, and then also be able to provide some examples from what I showed them the first couple days. So kind of same thing. You have the end goal and you have the roadmap to get there. So it's kind of important to break down standards. In fact, it's very important. But that's kind of what this week is about. Give it a shot. Please don't be discouraged if you don't understand everything about the standards, because I'm still learning as well, and I've been doing it for several years now. So yeah, good luck this week, and I'm very sorry that this video came in late. It is not required for you to watch this video necessarily, even though you probably did watch it, and now you're here at the end of this video. So, but thank you for watching.